So, let's talk a little bit about Mars. The red planet of Mars is the god of war, and so its archetype is the warrior. And as we get into the traits of Mars, you will see how that is the best description and archetype for Mars, because Mars likes to fight. And as such, it gets a bad reputation for its negative traits on its darker side, remembering that everything has polarity to it, including the planets. It's just that the darker side of Mars has earned it the title of the Lesser Malefic. But as we get into examining what Mars rules over and its traits, you'll begin to see that the energy of Mars is there to create action and movement. The number of Mars is 5, and its Sephirot on the Tree of Life is Geburah, Sephirot number 5. Now, when we talked about sacred geometry a little bit, with the triangle being the first plane of manifestation and the square being physical manifestation, three-dimensional manifestation. And this is why we use the triangle of the art when we want to summon spirits to physical manifestation. The triangle represents that first plane of manifestation, and the spirit within the triangle is that fourth point. And as long as we don't add another point, that spirit is bound within the triangle. There is no movement. The fifth point creates movement. When we do use 5 points, it is the pentagon, and the shape that fits within the pentagon is the pentagram. And now we use the pentagram quite often in our ritual magic, especially during our banishing rituals. Remember that there's so much information encoded in sacred geometry because of their simplistic nature of being symbols. And the more simplistic the symbol is, the more potent it becomes. And we use the pentagram in our banishing rituals. We have the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram, one of the very first things that you are taught. And we are taught that we are either banishing or invoking the elements, which is true. The points of the pentagram do correspond to those. But we're also creating movement. When you are banishing something, you are moving it away, are you not? And if you're invoking something, you're moving it to you, are you not? So it's important to keep this in mind as we go through these traits of Mars. And what are those traits? Well, on the dark side of Mars, we have anger, wrath, violence, accidents, pain, and destruction. And it's these traits that give Mars the title of Lesser Malefic. On the flip side, we have the positive traits of Mars, which are motivation, passion, lust, honor, dominance, masculinity, because Mars is the planet of masculinity. That's why we use the symbol of Mars for male and the symbol of Venus for female. But we can begin to see how these traits of Mars are able to create movement, because Mars is the great motivator. Anger can lead someone to take action and create movement, as can wrath. So can accidents, although accidents can be a result of movement. Pain can be a great motivator. And when it comes to physical pain in our bodies, we can look to our chart to see that Mars is directly responsible. Mars is usually transiting the sign that rules that part of the body, or it's making an aspect to another planet within that sign, or the planet that rules that sign. This is the case in every single chart I've ever looked at, and I'm still waiting to find one that proves otherwise. Destruction. We can see how destruction can force someone to take action and create movement. The tarot card associated with Mars is the Tower, a card very much associated with destruction. And that's really the essence of Mars. Move or be destroyed. But destruction is a necessary thing, because the old has to be destroyed and removed to make room for the new. If things are not destroyed, there simply wouldn't be enough room to accommodate the new. And so destruction is a necessary evil, so to speak. Move or be destroyed. You can see this in weightlifting, for example, or working out. So you had a great workout, and now you're in pain from that workout, but because of all that movement and action, your muscles now become stronger and larger, and there's actually some destruction and breaking down of the tissues involved with that. Conversely, if you do not work out and there is no movement, those muscles will be destroyed through wasting away. It's use it or lose it, is it not? So Mars is a very destructive energy, which is very masculine in nature. The male energy is there to protect the female. And if there's any threat to the female, the masculine energy kicks in to protect and to drive that threat away, move or be destroyed. This is the very base level of the energy of Mars. Motivation. Well, we can see how Mars motivates us to move. But that motivation need not come from its negative dark side traits. It can also come from your passion. What are you passionate about? Mars is the driving force behind that. It's what gets you up in the morning, ready to do your work. However, passion can also be intertwined with anger. When you see somebody on a rant and they say they're really passionate about it, whatever that topic may be, as they're trying to force their ideas and opinions on people. So Mars is a very passionate sign. Passionate meaning a driving force. Again, movement. Lust. Lust is very much associated with Mars, as opposed to love, which is associated with Venus. Right there you can see the difference between the sexes, where males are often more motivated by external stimuli, and the feminine is more motivated by internal stimuli, i.e. emotions. But lust gets a bad reputation, mainly from the church and people with sexual hang-ups. But it's necessary. Lust is a driving force that creates movement. In fact, it's probably the number one thing that people act upon, for we all are biologically programmed to procreate, whether you're consciously aware of that or not. And without lust, you would have a far more difficult time in doing that. Where is the motivation to procreate or have sex with someone you are not hot for? Mars is the fiery planet. And so when you say that she or he is hot, you are expressing the lust of Mars. If you take that away, you would have to seek the motivation elsewhere. And you can see this in the case of prostitutes, whose motivation is money and not lust, which is frowned upon even more than lust itself. And rightfully so, as it's not a true expression of Mars. Lust is the driving force of attraction for the masculine polarity, which is dominant in physicality. Mars is a dominating force. Honor is very important to Mars, and being the god of war, it rules over the military. If you're going to be discharged from the military, it should be done honorably. You receive medals and honors. That's why in TV shows you'll see the warriors talking about codes of honor. In Star Trek, for example, the Klingons are the warrior race, but they're always concerned with honor. In ancient culture, the Japanese, you had the samurai, but they're, concerned with honor. Mars wants to fight, but it wants to do so honorably. Mars is masculinity, and if you've ever listened to R.S.D. Tyler for any length of time, you'll know that the difference between an alpha male and a beta male is that the alpha male projects a masculine vibe. And this is why females are more attracted to alpha males. The astrological symbol for Mars depicts masculinity very clearly, representing a sharp-tipped spear, or the phallus. Mars, and therefore masculinity, is a very penetrating energy. Instead of either move or be destroyed, maybe it should be move or be penetrated. In ancient warfare, when there were swords and spears, and there was an attacker coming at you, you either moved or you were penetrated, you were stuck. And of course there are the correlations to sex, where the male penetrates the female, etc. And so Mars creates action and movement. It is your motivation and your driving force. It is the fight within you to get things done. But why is it so important for Mars to create action and movement? Well, without movement, there is no life. Life is animate. Even plant life is growing and therefore moving. As closely as Mars is associated with destruction, it's also very associated with life itself. The signs ruled by Mars are Aries and Scorpio, which is also co-ruled with Pluto. Mars is currently in its own sign of Aries until next week, when it moves into Taurus. And the month of Aries is March, which is derived from Mars. And in March we have spring, and spring brings about new life. Everything starts growing and moving again. The color of Mars is red, obviously, the red planet. The color of blood. And your blood needs to keep moving within your body in order for you to live. And so now we begin to see how Mars is associated with action and movement, and why I'm always talking about taking action, finding your passion and your purpose, and always be moving towards that to get the most out of your life. And while it's true that Mars has a bunch of qualities that we consider bad or negative, red is the color associated with the devil, after all. We can now understand that it is a vitally important planet, critical to the existence of life itself. Learn to harness the energy of Mars to motivate you into action. A couple of things before I go. Some of you may have noticed that YouTube has enabled the interactive cards on my account once again, which is really great timing for me. As one, I don't like to have to use big annotations and be all in your face about my programs and whatnot. And so I just prefer these to just pop in the corner and be inconspicuous, but there for anyone who's interested. And two, it's a testament to my Sigil Magic course, Manifesting Reality, because it was something that I had made a sigil for back when this feature was removed from my account. But now they apparently are giving it to everyone, but still the sigil worked through synchronicity, as they always do. The Manifesting Reality program has been a tremendous success over the weekend, and I want to thank every single one of you who has supported it by picking up a copy. And lastly, there are less than 3 days left to sign up for the Laws of Magic. Once it launches on Friday, it will no longer be available. And I think that will about do it. There will be another mailbag on the way to answer some of those long-awaited questions. So until then, take care.